back to Linda Love Talks, the show where we dive deep into meaningful conversations that move culture, community, and careers forward. I'm your host, Linda Love Lemos, and today's episode is truly one you won't want to miss. We're focusing on the topic that's shaping workplaces and communities across the nation, and that is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our guests bring powerful insights from their work in the field and in leadership spaces. Joining me today is Tamika Hawkins Adu, whose specialty is corporate communications. She is a visionary with regards to DEI strategy and organizational transformation. And Thaisa Jones, her brilliant business partner who is breaking barriers and redefining what inclusive, excellent looks like in action. Today, we'll be talking about the recent changes and pivotal shifts that have been leading and what's working, what's challenging, and what's the future of DEI, and what does that look like in today's evolving social landscape. So, whether you're a leader trying to build a more inclusive workplace, or an advocate pushing for systematic change, or someone curious about how DEI works in practice, this episode is for you. Let's get into it. Wonderful. It's Linda Love Talk Season 4, and I have two wonderful experts here, Tamika Hawkins and Thaisa Jones.
And before my husband yells at me, Tamika Hawkins Adu. So just
Okay, yes. So I love that you ladies are here. You ladies are the experts on this. It's really interesting how quickly the times have changed from the past decade or so, from so many companies having to be required a DEI fulfillment in order to obtain additional work, in order to obtain contracts with the United States government. DEI has applied for several years. It's actually before Kennedy. DEI first started for women. It has had a long history. Um, would any of you ladies would like to fill us in a little bit about the history of DEI?
Well, I'll start and say, I think that what we're seeing right now is it's a lot, right? And to your point, there was a need for these programs because there was not access to the opportunity. I think if we started from the beginning and we saw that there was equal access, where we saw that those opportunities were granted, where we were able to attend the same institutions, where we were able to get the interviews, where we were able to even get in the door, we would not have had a need for that. And so I think we are still seeing clearly a need for those programs. And as you talk about the 8A programs, we saw, the gutting of affirmative action with the Supreme Court decision. And so it is absolutely having a trickle, not even a trickle, a massive effect, a chilling effect. And so I think it's really disappointing where we are right now, but it's incumbent upon us to continue the work because it matters and it's important.
Yeah. And in addition to that, I would say that I think one of the things that a lot of people really don't understand, or if they take the time to really pull it apart, is DEI goes beyond just your ethnicity. DEI is women. It was inclusive of women. We couldn't work, we couldn't vote, we couldn't, like, these are all DEI things. It's veterans, it's people with disabilities. So when you start looking at the percentage of the population that falls into those categories, it's like all of us. So when you start getting rid of DEI programs because you're only focused on one thing, you don't realize it's affecting your friends, it's affecting your family, it's affecting where you work, because there's plenty of people there that would not have jobs if these things were not in place.
And I think there's so much research out there that shows that having diversity in your workforce increases productivity, increases the bottom line. When you've got people that are representative of your consumers, of the people who use your products, who buy things at your stores, you're going to get a better outcome. And so it not only is it the right thing to do and what we should be doing in this country, but it's profitable. And so the fact that, all of those reasons and everything that Ty has said has just kind of fallen by the wayside,
Mhm.
or some kind of, I don't know, fictional narrative that is not based in any sort of fact. It is just, it's mind blowing to see where we are right now in our country.
Absolutely. And just to inform a lot of listeners, DEI and affirmative action is not just something that has happened in the United States of America. Several countries have their own affirmative action, and it's basically because there's always a majority group that does not allow others who are seen as others or minority groups to be included in work or in society. So I think that's like the general
Mhm.
understanding of it. So in several other countries, it's this group or the other group or whatever that group is. However, in the United States, like both these experts have explained, it also does include white women, and it also does include Latinos, Indians, Asians, a whole bunch of different other groups, as well as people living with disabilities like myself, who live with disabilities that need accommodations to be able to work as well. So with that gone, do you feel that more people are going to have more difficulties? They're going to be more vulnerable?
Absolutely. One of the things, so just going off of the people living with disabilities, that literally includes there being ramp access in buildings.
Hmm.
So it's not just going to affect how you work, it's going to affect how you live, how you get around. We're so used to it now, we're just used to seeing ramps when you go to a bank, when you go to the grocery store, anything where there's stairs, there's an elevator, there's a ramp. Those things are in place because of people with disabilities. So yes, and also in the workplace, I mean, if you're not giving people accommodations, like something as simple as my last place of employment where I actually had to work for some when I was working for somebody else, I needed accommodations for a standing desk because I have a bone spur.
Right.
So I can't sit all day long. So I had to have the ability to stand up and sit down, and had to get a note from my doctor's office in order for them to order me a standing desk. Well, if you take away the right of people with a disability, then that means that you're cutting down the people that could potentially work for you. So, what does the workforce look like? Who's working for your company if the pool of applicants gets smaller and smaller and smaller?
And I think what we're also seeing, Linda, is the dismantling of those methods and avenues to advocate for that standing desk that Ty needed, right? So we're seeing the Office of Civil Rights shut down, or we're seeing people, we're seeing them shutter the EEOC and those kind of ways that we were able to go about getting those accommodations and the things that we need to do our jobs and to be active citizens in this society. So it is just on multiple levels. We are just seeing a complete dismantling of all the things that made America America, that made America great, if you will. So it is. It's just absolutely. I don't know. I'm every day. It's hard to kind of keep up
Right.
what's happening. It's so much, but I've really it's we've got to push back. We have to push back.
Well, America's has had the promise for a lot of immigrants, and even if you're first generation or fifth generation, doesn't matter. We're mostly an immigrant nation. Um, the promise of equal opportunity and equal education and equal work. How has the new laws that have been passed, how has that affected your work? Is there any example that you can provide?
Wow. That's a loaded question. Um, I will say, I think in terms of our current sort of portfolio,
Hmm.
I think we were in pretty good shape. I think that we have a variety of clients that we work for, but I will say, we are seeing clients be a lot more intentional
Mhm.
about the language that they're using, about how they're framing their work. So people are certainly paying attention to that and adjusting accordingly. Ty, what would you say?
I think somewhere along those same lines is being very careful and intentional about what we are recommending clients put on their website, how they utilize social media. If you're going to be speaking, these are, maybe words you should stay away from. Because as we know, there are people that are paying attention to individuals and companies that otherwise would have flown under the radar. But as soon as they start saying things like, this program is earmarked for,
Mhm.
followed by any minority class, then there's lawsuits. And we have been a part of those lawsuits. Not our company, but the client. We have, like Tamika was saying, we have another client where they do have a program that is specifically for women enrolled at HBCUs. It went off just fine last year. This year, we need to completely change the language, um, which gets difficult when you're trying to speak to a certain demographic and then
Mhm.
you can't call out that demographic. Um, so, thankfully, Tamika and I, we love words and we love to tell stories. I always tell people one of the things I love most is to string a bunch of words together to tell a story to get somebody to do what it is that I want them to do. But now a lot of those words are not in my vocabulary anymore. So just having to be a little bit more creative, which under normal circumstances I would absolutely welcome, but under these circumstances it's disheartening.
Right, and
Yeah.
probably challenging at the most. Um, what's interesting about this, I don't realize, I don't think the current administration or the current government realize, I worked with DEI, but on the corporate side. So I had to make sure that the company had a certain amount of individuals that could comply with the United States government in order to enter into a contract with the United States government. The company that I worked for did not comply, and I can talk about it because it was published on the newspaper, so I can talk about it. I'm not going to say the company, but it was a construction company. I can tell you that much. And they did not want to hire minorities or anything like that, so they went to a third party that would fill out documents that were completely false and misleading. And then the government and the Office of EEOC sued the construction company, and the construction company had to pay an astronomical penalty and have their name plastered all over the news about how they did not hire any minorities at all. And instead of just telling the truth, at least telling the truth to the government, they decided to shell out money for a third party to fill out numbers of people who didn't exist. And so marching forward from that situation, I was like, I would have to go up to the powers that be, the CEO and CFO, and I would just tell them the truth. You have a few minorities, not a large amount, but at least tell them what you do have. And they were oblivious as to who in their office was a minority or not. I believe they just saw us as this particular skin color and thought that we all were from the same background and same morals and values and culture or whatever. I don't know. I think it's also the age too. They're much older men, and honestly, they're from the same generation as our current president, and times were extremely different back then. It's not such a progressive society that we were living in. And I had to explain to them, no, you do just fill out what you have. And they're like, well, we have no Latinos. And I stared back at the CFO and I said, you are lucky. You are so lucky. You have one in front of you. And I will remind you of this every time you have to downsize. I will remind you that you still need me. So we can fill out these future forms and comply. So, and I'm using it as an example of how companies sometimes they do have these ongoing biases. They were raised in different times when some of them were born or around during segregation. They have a theology in their minds as well, and they have this stagnant ideology that really is not the world and does not reflect the world. There are several individuals, different cultures, different languages, but that does not entail as to what their potential and their capacity is. And I believe everyone has the right to make a living and to obtain an education and to provide for themselves and their families, period. But I wanted to share that story as to what happens, and that's with having an EEOC commission, and that's with the laws and
Mhm.
how many companies did not want to comply or wanted to, let's see how we could work around it or work around the compliance. I remember stating to one of my colleagues, she really wanted a business owner to be president. And I said, it's a horrible idea because I've worked with so many corporate 500 CEOs and CFOs. I said, that's a horrible idea. You can't run a government like you run a business.
Was just going to say that. It's impossible. And I mean, let's be honest here. Like, and the way that President Trump ran his businesses, right?
Mhm.
He absolutely cannot run the government in that way. The number of bankruptcies, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And so I think that, I mean, honestly, I'm not surprised, Linda, that that was your experience.
Right.
Um, I can't tell you how many times I've been called whoever the other Black woman was in the office, even if there was a 10-year difference between us and our ages. And so it happens. And I think that we are the culture of a company says a lot, right? And I think after George Floyd was killed, we saw a lot of performative measures. We saw the little black boxes on social media and, all of the commitments. And I think that what we're seeing now, where we're seeing the pendulum swing so far to the other side, really shows us where their values
Mhm.
really lie. And I think we understand how capitalism works. We understand how, having to, go back to your shareholders and talk about the value, of your stock and shareholder value, et cetera. We get it. But I am encouraged by the companies that have said, we're going to stick by this. We're going to stand by, what we said and what we've committed to do. And so it'll be interesting just to see how some of these kind of boycotts, we're, definitely tracking those numbers, the numbers from, I think, a couple of weeks ago, where some of those are coming out. And so I think that this is kind of where we're going, right? Where people are going to have to be the ones to lead right now. And I think, I appreciate everyone trying to do what they can do in terms of our congressional leaders, but I'm looking at local leaders right now. I'm looking at what governors are doing. And so it is just absolutely fascinating to me to watch. I hate that we're living through it.
Right, right.
It is such an interesting case study to see from a business perspective, as comms experts, looking at how people are communicating this, and just kind of where we are as a republic, as a country.
Mm,
It's been so incredible to watch.
absolutely. Well said. So with all these changes, where do does America go from here?
Honestly, I feel like we said it in 20, what was the first one? 2016?
Yeah.
Yes. That we tried really hard to help people understand the importance of voting and the repercussions for sitting it out, or I don't like either candidate, things like that. And so we got those 4 years. It ended with COVID. So, I think a lot of people have amnesia about that whole time period. Then we had another president in the middle, and now we have Trump in his second term. And people are so up in arms. And it is the very people that, I try really hard not to make everything about race, but in this particular situation, being part of the 92% of Black women that voted the opposite. And the people that leading up to the election were like, I don't like either candidate, neither one of them are going to do it, like all of the things. And we were like, yes, but it's the lesser of two evils at this point. And now those same people are on social media, they're literally crying. And again, I actually feel for people that need assistance, children that need lunch in school. These are things that, as Tamika and I both have children that are in school, I'm paying attention to how it's affecting little people. I mean, I'm getting emails from the school district about what they're doing about ICE coming to schools. So you're just terrorizing children. No. Okay. Fantastic. So, something as simple as voting. I think that's the biggest thing that people really need to understand. And then in addition to that, like Tamika said, if you don't like something, you have to say something. You have to call. It's not enough to call. I mean, you can call your congressmen, your senators of that nature. Call the people in your county. Call the superintendents. Hold them accountable. Like start at the bottom, work your way up. Because all of them are elected. So that's where it's going to start. I don't know what the outcomes are going to be with the boycotts. It would seem as though at the very least, the Circle store, who will go unnamed, they have had significant drops. And now there's this 40-day fast from it. So we'll see what happens with that. But I do think that companies and organizations are going to have to pay attention to what people are saying. And at some point, they're going to have to pick a side. Are you going to go with what the government is saying? Or are you going to go with the people that are putting money in your pockets? And it's going to literally come down to the bottom line. Tamika and I are in communications. My husband is in finance. Tamika's husband is quasi in finance. He's a lobbyist, but he's a lobbyist for a financial institution. And every day, my husband comes home and he says something different. One day it's, well, stocks are fine. The next day it's, oh Lord. So he's having to answer to his clients about what do we do? This is down in our portfolio and things like that. And so he's up and down as well. So, it's touching every corner of the country. It's touching every job that there is in this country. I was watching something last night where I think the only people that are excited right now are people that own prisons. That's it. It's literally never happened. And they were sharing notes from their last meeting and they were talking about this is the moment we've been waiting for. And there's never been a more exciting time to be in this job. Oh, okay. Those are the people that are excited and people need to be paying attention to that.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I think that we've got to get back to basics, like civics, right? So understanding how our government works, understanding the ways that the responsibility that we have as citizens, I think is incredibly important. And we just need to get out the message in a way that is clear, that people understand. I think, a journalist I was listening to yesterday just kind of talked about kind of the appeal of Trump in that he's very common sense. And so I think as someone who watches politics and communications, and the law, all three, it's interesting. And he speaks in a way, whether or not you agree with him, it is very clear. And so I think as someone who is a Democrat, I really want to see the party get out there and speak to people, meet them where they are. I think there were certain areas in our country that we did not penetrate, that we were not on the ground. We got to fix that. We've got to put money in, into the races. There were some, definitely some areas where they're more red, but there were some pockets and some places where we could have made inroads. And so I think we've got to take a step back. I am continuing to hold out hope that we will hold on and hold tight to our democracy. I love this country, and I am very proud to be an American, and I know what we can be. And so I think, as Ty said, we're thinking about our kids. We're thinking about what this means for them. And I think this is our civil rights moment. Like, I know my parents grew up in the Jim Crow South, probably could have never thought that we'd be literally going back and making these steps, but here we are, and now it's our moment. It is the time for us to stand up and stand up for what we know is right. And so I think we have to we got to do it, whatever that looks like, even if it's small, even if it's just things in your neighborhood or your community, or like Ty said, your school system. We all there's a part for all of us to play. I know some of us are a little fatigued, but I think we got to get back in the game.
We've talked about a little bit about politics. We've talked about companies and their language and the whole, I feel like I never thought in my career that diversity, equity, and inclusion would become a dirty word, that DEI would become like the dirty word, like seriously. Only because I've had to fill out forms and work with the EEOC through my own job, mostly as a paralegal. It's very interesting. What is your advice now with the DEI being attacked in the university level? Both of you have attended universities and so on and so forth. And what is your take on that? And should we even, students, I include myself, should we even check off a box as to who or what we are? Does it even matter anymore?
I think it matters. I do think it matters. And I know Ty and I both are very proud graduates of Howard University. And we are, very proud to be alums of a historically Black college and university. And so we know how important our institutions are, and even more so now. And we understand what we're facing, particularly those that rely heavily on federal funds. But I think it is important to still kind of be counted, if you will, as we look at what this means in terms of kind of just your being on campus. I think it's important now for the organizations, and I know we're seeing a lot of things happening right now. Just an incident sort of at Columbia University that is all over the news, but I think that we can't. I think it's time to lean in. I don't think we shy away from being proud to be Latina and proud to be Black or proud to be South Asian or whatever the case may be. I don't think it's the time to retreat from that. I think we need to be strategic, right, about what that looks like. But I don't think it's the time that we sort of shrink in our identity and who we are.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Like Tamika said, yes, we're both graduates of Howard University. I transferred to Howard from another school that was recently in the news for cutting all of their DEI everything, which was Ohio State, which is a huge state school. It's a fantastic school. It was just too big for me and I needed out. But having been there, like Tamika said, I don't think this is the time where you shy away from it. You continue to check that box because at some point, people are going to have to look at the numbers and seeing, from a university standpoint, the number of graduates, the degrees that we have, the careers that we're pursuing, the places that we end up in a work environment. These numbers matter. The most educated group of people in this country is the Black woman.
Mhm.
So I'm going to keep checking that box Just so and it's really more like yeah, I know that you perceive certain groups the way you want to perceive them.
Mhm,
However, we show up and we show out.
mhm.
So do not take our dollars for granted. Do not take our intelligence for granted. Um, and so I don't think that this is the time that people should, I don't want to say be ashamed, but think that it doesn't matter, because it absolutely does matter. Um, Whatever happens over the next 4 years, it's going to happen over the next 4 years. But how we get through these 4 years and what we look like on the other side of it, people are going to be paying attention to that.
Absolutely. Wow. I think also, going back to the voting, we need to be voting more on the local level and be seen even in our own communities, which is hard. Sometimes certain communities are assumed to be a certain type because the other groups are too busy working two and three jobs. Even the professionals, a lot of professionals are professors and also own a business. They have two or three jobs as well. But I think you ladies are absolutely correct. We need to be more present even in our local communities and to be able to hold our elected officials accountable. And so we're almost at the end. Any final words, Tamika and then Thaisa?
Wow, this was a great
Hmm.
discussion. Thank you. I think just for me personally, I just want to double click on self-care through all of this. I think that, what we're seeing right now, what we're living through, it's heavy. It is a lot. I know Ty and I both have been leaning into the meditation and you just kind of making sure, and even as people who watch like I used to be just nonstop. I still know what's going on, but my intake is a little less right now. So I think whatever you need to do to sort of protect your peace, mentally, physically, it is a beautiful day in the DC area today, so get out and walk. So I think that really is the important takeaway. This too shall pass. I think, that is kind of what I tell myself, and continuing to attach myself to my faith and hold on to that. And we cannot lose hope, no matter what happens, no matter what executive order comes out in the next 5 minutes, because there is a new one every 5 minutes. We just have to stay grounded and rooted in who we are as Americans and who we know that we can be.
Yeah, I think that I will echo what Tamika said. We talk daily about what the headlines are. Tamika leans a bit more. She reads into it a little bit more than I do. I literally will read the headlines and then bring it up with her and go, "Do you know anything in addition to this headline? Because I'm only going to read the headline." Um, I, because of our backgrounds, I do think that prior to this particular administration, I have always been a little bit more likely and welcome a healthy debate. Let's debate it. Okay, you see this one way, I see it this way. I'm not doing that anymore, because it's a waste of my energy. I think that where we are right now, like Mika said, this is our civil rights moment. This is not what is happening right now, has nothing to do with finances, like they like to claim. We're trying to save money. This is about ethnic minorities. Um, and so if that is the foundation of which you would like to debate me, I can't debate that. And I'm not going to. I'm not going to waste my energy. So yes, I have leaned heavily into meditation and yoga and drinking my water and preserving my peace, because there are absolutely going to be moments where we're going to need our energy and boots on the ground to fight whatever is happening. And I don't mean in a physical way. I just mean we're going to have to push back. We're going to have to rally. Those of us that do not believe in what is happening with the person that is currently occupying the White House. Um, and we need to be prepared. And in this moment, we just need to make sure that those who are not up to date on civics lessons and what voting means, that we get those people up to speed, that we identify people that should be running for office that maybe have shied away because they did not think that they were qualified or capable or whatever it may be. Unfortunately, the bar is very low now, so anybody can run for office. But just helping people understand, if you have something to say, if you feel strongly about something, there's organizations out here that will help you figure out how to run for office. They will help you figure out how to fundraise. And I think that that's where we need to be headed over these next 4 years, is making sure that we have people that care. So regardless of, Elon Musk said that our problem is empathy. Is that not what makes us human? Is empathy. So we just need more people that care about people as a whole. Don't categorize us, just people, just as human beings. So save your energy over these next 4 years so that we can reach that goal. And don't worry about arguing with people, in comments on social media. It's just not worth it. It's just not. Just live your life the best that you can. We are all going to be affected one way or another with all these executive orders and having to pivot and being more creative in how we work and where we shop and where we eat and all the things. But people have gone through worse and come out better on the other side. And so this is our moment. This is our test, and we will be all right.
Well, thank you so much. That concludes this podcast session about DEI and where do we go from here and what's next. And I want to thank very much Tamika Hawkins and Miss Thaisa Jones for joining us. Please look at this print box below and you will find all their information in case you need to contact them. And thank you so much for joining us.